Welcome everyone to Zoom Palestine on Saturday, the first Saturday in June, and we're going to be looking at several of the week's events. There were so many things that were going on and continue to go on that are both positive and negative for Palestine. So we're going to look at what's happening, some of which is local for New York, particularly with City University of New York, and some of which is international, and that the UN has actually made a stand for pro-Palestinian stand. So we're going to begin, as we always do, by looking at some beautiful Palestinian music that will inspire us, hopefully. And I'm going to share the screen so that we will be able to enjoy this beautiful music, the traditional music. Okay, so we'll do a share screen, and we're going to listen to this beautiful Palestinian music. Do a full screen share on it.
فلسطين تاج عالراس في العين وفي قلوب الناس، عشق المجروح جوا الروح مع الله. وانا مهما رحت ولفيت سيحضنك والله ما لقيت، كل واحد شبك سمى وقال ما شاء الله. عشق المجروح جوا الروح مع الله. وانا مهما رحت ولفيت سيحضنك والله ما لقيت، ما شاء الله. يا بلادي في العين واسمك محفور على الجبين، حبك ايمان وفي كل مكان تفرحين. حي الوطن حي، اسم الوطن علو، ارضك رجالك بالسجدان تفدين. كل ما نروح عاكر ونشفى علينا الله. عشق المجروح وروح الله. دفيت سيحضنك والله ما لقيت.
Hi.
بجمال كان شعار وصف صوتي دعوه وغنينا بلادي يا حرة مين جانا عتابة وجفرة الكوفية والتحية لابونا كانوا يا أجمل طالع زي في بلاد الله إياهم الله الفلسطينيين قول يا مهند قول فلسطيني نزلوا على الساحة في الكوفية ايديهم لوحة ودلعونا دلعونا سمعونا صوت الخشب سمعونا
Wow, how was that? So, welcome everybody, and sorry to diminish the screen because I forgot to get a link to something very important event that happened this week that affects Palestine in a pretty big way. And so I knocked over my 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 phone doing it at Facebook Live. But I wanted to mention briefly the royal wedding in Jordan, which is a big, big deal, and that Jordan is actually full of many Palestinians. And now I just got the link and it's just disappeared again. They say approximately 85% of Palestine comes from are from Palestinian. 80% of Jordan are Palestinians, and the king's wife right now is actually a Palestinian, and she's also from New Jersey. She went to Princeton University. So I'm going to show a clip about the wedding in Jordan, the royal crown princess wedding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about
Talk to my plants like they're babies. Hey, you don't need to be that personal to get the State Farm personal price plan. It just helps you create an affordable price. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or click to get a quote today.
Hi, tomorrow on Facebook. President Jordan's royal family and their guests celebrate the wedding of the Crown Prince Hussein, the Saudi architect Ralph Hassan. Hi, Kamal from Gaza. Welcome. We're thinking of you, Kamal. History and continuity were emphasized for future monarch married in the same spot as father and grandfather. And Jordan is full of festivities. They drove through the streets and everybody partied. Was as well as a welcome celebration of a country that's been struggling economically. The marriage is seen as a way to cement ties with the nations, with exciting neighbors. And Saudi Arabia has provided a lot of money to Jordan, build their major water line that goes through the country, has built much of the infrastructure. I miss weddings from Jordan. So there's a lot of very interesting consequences that we can talk about for a minute to this marriage. And I'm going to do a whole program on the relationship between Palestine and Jordan. But what's very interesting about this marriage is that she is an American trained architect, also with a degree in international history. So she's a pretty sharp Saudi woman who represents the new generation of women in Saudi Arabia who are under Mohammed bin Salman actually getting more rights. But you know, Mohammed bin Salman is kind of a tyrant, actually. He's her cousin, though. So she has his ear. And Saudi Arabia, you know, is making this detente, supposedly, hi, Norby, welcome, supposedly with Israel. And the problem with this, of course, is that it stabs the Palestinians in the back if they Saudis and Israelis, you know, become good friends suddenly. And what's recently happened is quite interesting. You may not know that Jordan, the king of Jordan, is in charge of all the holy places in Jerusalem. He's in charge of Al-Aqsa Mosque, of Al-Quds. So the king of Jordan, King Abdullah right now, and his son, who will be the future king of Jordan, are in charge of the holy places in Jerusalem. And what's been happening is that the Israelis have been attacking the mosques. And there was an incident last week on the celebration of Shavuos, which is a Jewish celebration, the Feast of Weeks, which is the origins of Pentecost. And it's a harvesting, basically celebrating a harvest festival. So a group of settlers, of the crazy settlers, went and invaded the mosque. There was a large march of the settlers into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which freaked everybody out. And the king of Jordan has warned Israel on several occasions about messing with the holy sites and about permitting the invasion of the holy sites, which there's been many events recently, if you've been paying attention, where Israelis have gone in, these crazy settlers have invaded the holy sites. So now it's interesting. We have now a Saudi in the royal family. So the Saudis now have a choice, and we know what that choice is going to be. Are they going to choose their friendship with Israel and stay quiet, or are they going to be good Muslims? And they all say they, and Mohammed bin Salman, as well as King Abdullah, all descend from the Prophet Muhammad. And we know that when the push comes to shove, the Saudis will choose loyalty to Islam rather than loyalty to Israel. So this marriage bodes well for the Palestinians, because now there's somebody actually in the royal family who has responsibility for the holy places to keep them sacred for Muslims and to keep the Israelis out of them. So this is actually a good turn for Palestine. And I'd like to do a program in the future on the history. It's a very interesting history of the Palestinians in Jordan. Now, while I was in Jordan, I was very surprised to see how many Palestinians were in the government. We've had Palestinian prime ministers, Palestinian running the court, and Palestinians in high places, whether it's hospitals, doctors, lawyers, Indian chief, whatever. They're Palestinians are very prominent in Palestine, and this is why. They have a work ethic and a family ethic that when I first went to teach in Jordan, I noticed that there were some students in my class who were very good students. They, if you asked them to write 10 pages, they wrote 20 pages. They excelled at everything. They were highly motivated. They seemed to have a lot of family support and pressure. And I said, this reminds me of my Jewish students in New York, because they were all planning to be lawyers, doctors, high, some profession. And there was a lot of pressure from their family. Also, they were very good at business. They made a lot of money in Jordan. A lot of the corporations and the hotels, and are owned by Palestinians. So the Palestinians, if they could get out of the refugee camps, and we'll be talking about that, they actually became very prominent and wealthy and influential in Palestinian society, in Jordanian society. But then there was a big problem when they revolted against the monarchy in what they call Black October. And we'll talk about that. And that created a tension. But I said to my students, you remind me of my Jewish students in New York. The Palestinians and the Jews are very closely related, not only blood brothers in terms of DNA from the Middle East, the Jews that actually come from the Middle East and not Europe, but they have a work ethic and an intelligent use of resources and a passion for what they believe. So that's why there's such a equal match, why the Israelis have not been able to quelch the Palestinians, that the people in Gaza living in the worst prison in the world are refusing to give in. And I'm going to read what our friend in Gaza is writing to us right now. He said, God bless everything you do for Palestine, and it makes him happy to see us and happy to hear that we are paying attention to what's going on. So there's a huge cultural similarity between the Palestinians and Jews. And the Jews like to talk about how the Palestinians, are backward and, all they want to do is lie in their tent and ride their camel or whatever. That's not true. Palestine was the most advanced country in the Middle East in 1948. It was highly technologically advanced. The women were educated. They wore saddle shoes and plaid skirts, just like our mothers. They were highly advanced, and it was the most educated, technologically advanced country in the Middle East. So there's much to talk about in this topic. But anyhow, let's go and discuss our topics for today, which are, let's see if I can get it, share our screen. Okay, and let's get on to Google Chrome and share. Okay, so we just looked at the royal wedding, which was kind of a lot of fun to look at. And now we're going to look at what the electronic intifada has told us. About what's going on this week, a lot of stuff. First of all, the situation, the UN warned of catastrophe for Palestinians because the aid is drying up. You remember Trump started to reduce the aid to Palestine, and it's gotten worse and worse. And international organizations have tried to fill in the gap, but it's not enough. So it's a very alarming situation, and we need to really raise the alarms about this, because people are going to literally be starving to death. So let's read this article. It says the UN Secretary General warned of the catastrophic consequences last yesterday. With UNWRA, the UN Agency for the Palestinian Refugees, on the verge of financial collapse. And a lot of this has to do with our dear departed President Trump. Meanwhile, food assistance to Palestinians from the World Food Program is set to dry up. Simultaneously, most impacting families in Gaza. So we're talking to our dear friend Kamal Reda in Gaza. And this is going to affect him and his friends and family profoundly. Because the majority of the people are food insecure after 15 years of Israeli-Egyptian blockade. The World Food Program this month will be suspending food aid to some 200,000 Palestinians, pointing to a shortfall of 51 million. Wow. By August, the agency will be forced to completely suspend operations in the West Bank and Gaza if no funding is received, affecting an additional 100,000 beneficiaries. A Hamas official in Gaza And here's a little video announcing, we'll just skip the video. A Hamas official in Gaza told the Tel Aviv newspaper Haaretz that his organization, along with the Palestinian Authority of Ramallah, were appealing to donor states to continue to fund the World Foods Program's operations in Palestine. So this is something we can all do. Write a letter, call our congressmen, call our senators. The impact will be felt beyond the beneficiaries who are directly affected. Ending the program will bring about a decrease in purchasing power when approximately 200,000 people will not receive their financial aid. They're not going to be able to shop at the stores. So this is a huge economic impact. Reversing decades of gains, additional reduction of already slashed support to the region's most vulnerable communities amid ever-increasing needs would reverse decades of human development gains, according to Philip Lazzarini, the head of UNWRA. So this is like really, really a crisis, an emergency crisis. Take it from me, I've seen what UNWRA does, and it keeps people alive, children alive. Lazzarini said the agency would be forced to suspend schooling for 555,000 boys and girls and health services for more than 2 million refugees in September without additional support from donor states. And most of the schools, when you go to Palestine, are run by UNWRA. When I was in Ramallah, when I visited Hebron, when I was in Gaza, all of these places, their schools are run by UNWRA. On Friday, he appealed for funds urgently needed to maintain UNRWA's government-like services, as well as emergency cash and food assistance for the poorest among the poor at the UN headquarters in New York City. UNRWA announced on Saturday that it had secured $100 million in new pledges, but this was not enough to cover the agency's requirements beginning in September. During a press conference on Thursday, Lazzarini likened his agency's situation to that of a slowly sinking ship, reaching the tipping point of no return. At present, the existential crisis facing the agency can be reversed, Lazzarini said, but we need genuine political attention and commitment to prevent further sinking. So we need to pay attention to this. And we will play a short video when we finish reading the article. The agency can no longer scrape by on austerity measures and debt accumulation after a decade of chronic underfunding and is looking for sustainable, long-term, predictable, and flexible funding, according to an appeal made by UNRWA this month. UNRWA has only received 33% of its requirements for the year, the agency said. It is most urgently seeking $75 million for food assistance in Gaza and $30 million for cash assistance to Palestinian refugees in Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. Hey, Gates and Elon Musk and all of our other gazillionaires, they need to step up to the plate. UNRWA also needs $12 million to maintain cash assistance to Palestinian refugees in Jordan who were displaced from Syria. And this is where I can tell you that I was there. I saw what UNRWA does. It's so important and so critical in millions of ways. And there's another thing to think about, that not only the people who receive the aid are going to be affected, but the people who work for UNRWA. There are many Jordanians and Palestinians who have degrees and have skills and have expertise that have jobs with UNRWA and are able to support their families and pay their rent and eat because of the work that they do for the UN. All over Jordan, all over Palestine. So that Palestinians, when they get a degree in, say, sustainable development or in water management, engineering, medicine, they have a place where they can get a job with UNRWA. So not only are the recipients being affected, and then all of the chain of economic connections between the shops and the economy when the people don't have the money to go out and shop or purchase services, but the professional, highly skilled, excellent people who work for UNRWA are going to lose jobs. So this is a disaster of a major scale, and it really makes me almost cry because I've seen UNRWA, I've seen what they do and how needed they are, and it's just very upsetting to see this situation. The agency is seeking smaller amounts to respond to the earthquake in Syria and for cash assistance, emergency health, education, environmental health in the West Bank amid unprecedented levels of violence. So because of all the recent violence and crazy stuff going on, UNRWA is even more needed. They said it's nothing short of catastrophic. Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, remarked during his pledging conference on Friday that some of the largest and most reliable donors have recently signaled to UNRWA they might reduce their contributions. Emphasizing that UNRWA is on the verge of financial collapse, Guterres added that further budget cuts would be nothing short of catastrophic, with affecting the lives of millions of Palestinians. UNRWA cannot scale back its government-like services to match diminished voluntary funding, according to Lazzarini. When we talk about adapting spending to resources, I am in no position to say, well, because we have 20% less resources, let's ask 20% of our children to get out of the school. Lazzarini said, this is not the way public services operate. He called for the renewal of UNRWA's mandate by the UN General Assembly every 3 years to be accompanied by genuine commitment and resources. And he says that all resources stagnate at the same time. The region has been hit by multiple crises, increasing needs amid rising costs, so that the tension between the costs and the resources have become more and more unbearable. And he says that Lazzarini acknowledged that UNRWA created on a temporary basis in 1949 to meet the needs of Palestinian refugees expelled from their homeland, but is reaching its 75th year of existence. Amid a staggering political process, any decrease of services is perceived as a weakening of the future rights of our Palestinian refugees that makes any transformation impossible. And he indicates that donors in the US and Europe are decreasing while their budgets are increasing their budgets all over. Everybody has less money. Contributions from Arab states peaked with these countries funding some 25% of UNRWA's budget in 2018, but hit a low of 3% in 2021. So this is another area where perhaps having a Saudi princess will be of help for funding for UNRWA. And of course, Palestinian is deprioritized for Ukraine. People are giving money to Ukraine, but deprioritizing the needs of the people in Palestine. So let's look at this video for a minute. And then we'll continue.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, Mr. Philippe Lazzarini. He will be talking about the immediate funding to the agency and the importance of a longer-term funding solution to avoid this recurrent shortage in income, among other topics. You have the floor, Mr. Lazzarini.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shirin, for hosting me, and good afternoon. It's definitely a pleasure to be back here in New York. In fact, I'm in town because tomorrow there will be a pledging conference organized by the president of the GA in the presence of the UN Secretary General to support UNRWA. I think it is absolutely no secret for any of you that the agency is going through a massive financial crisis. And to the extent that I have recently described the financial crisis as being our main existential threat when it comes to our ability to implement the mandate conferred to UNRWA. And I know that you have heard more than once about the financial crisis, about the fact that we are about to implode, that it comes almost like a broken record to you here. But I can tell you, the crisis is real, it is deepening, and our ability to muddle through is slowly but surely coming to an end. The situation is even more critical now that some of our committed donors have indicated that they will substantially decrease their contribution to the agency. I keep telling partners that UNWRA is not like any other UN humanitarian or development agency. There is a uniqueness in this organization, and the uniqueness in this organization is that we are the only one who are tasked to provide government-like services. In reality, we are de facto the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Primary Health, Ministry of Social Services, Ministry of Municipal Services to one of the most destitute community in the region, being the Palestinian refugees. So when we talk about, adapting spending to resources, I am in no position to say, well, because we have 20% less resources, let's ask 20% of our children to get out of the school. Based on which criteria? We have nearly 550,000 girls and boys in our school. I cannot one year say I take 550,000, another year to say I take 100,000 less, and when the funding is back, we'll bring back these children. That's not the way public-like services do operate. But I have also recently tirelessly highlighted the situation in which we are locked in, kind of statu quo. On one hand, we have the mandate of the General Assembly, which is very straightforward and which is renewed every 3 years. Last year in November, I was urging member states, make sure we are not just rubber stamping the renewal of the mandate. It needs to be accompanied by genuine commitment and resources. On the other hand, we have seen over the last 10 years that our resources have stagnated, while at the same time, the region has been hit by multiple crises, needs have increased, expectation vis-à-vis UNWRA being the only lifeline for the Palestinian refugees have also increased, costs have increased, but the resources have stagnated. So the tension between the cost and the resources have become more and more unbearable. And last but not least, we have also an expectation in a context where the political process is completely stalled, in a context where the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is not a priority anymore. You have communities who expect the agency to continue to deliver its services and who would perceive any decrease of services as a weakening of the future right of the Palestinian refugees, which makes any transformation impossible. Based on our forecast, we will have no and when I say forecast, it's the best available information from all our donor base. We will have no funds and cash available as from September to keep our school, health center, and other critical services running. We also need additional funding to keep our humanitarian operation. So it's not just our public-like services, but also the humanitarian situation in Gaza, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in the OPT. I also keep telling partners and donors, and that will also be part of my message tomorrow, that they should not take our ability to continue to deliver services for granted. sooner or later, we will be reaching a tipping point. Recently, I was describing that our situation through a metaphor, saying, well, we are like a ship which start to sink but hasn't sunk. We can still reverse it, but for that we need genuine political attention and commitment to prevent that we further sink. I have to say, it's quite mind-boggling that decades of human development, gained largely thanks to the support of the international community in the region, might all of a sudden be reversed. Because UNWRA is certainly one of the best human development success story of the United Nations, definitely in the Middle East, but certainly far beyond the Middle East. And when we look at what's at stake, well, we know what is at stake is more than 500,000 girls and boys who could be deprived of school, because if we have no cash, we cannot pay salaries, and if we cannot pay salaries, we have no teacher running the school. The same applies with healthcare for more than 2 million people. The same applies with our humanitarian assistance for more than 1.2 million people. The same applies for social safety net for the poorest among the poor. So basically, my message tomorrow also to the member state is, to beyond the pledging conference, is to ring the alarm bell and to say the statu quo in which we are locked in today, it's not an option anymore. It's not bearable anymore. We cannot continue to muddle through. Yes, maybe for a few more months, maybe even for 1 year, but this is slowly and surely coming to an end. So tomorrow, I will have two main asks. Obviously, the first one is that we need additional funding on a predictable basis, flexible funding also, to allow us to keep our schools, health center, and other critical activities running. But secondly, in the absence of a fair and lasting political solution to the plight of Palestinian refugees, we also need a sustainable and predictable UNRWA for the refugees, for the host countries, for the stability
Sorry, I think the share stopped and I'm not sure why.
of the region, and also for the international community. Let me just end by saying that we are approaching the 75th year.
Trying to get this share. I don't know why it's paused. I didn't pause it. Sorry, this is very annoying.
Of a temporary agency. We were supposed to be a temporary agency, and we are still here 75 years later. There is nothing to rejoice per se, because that means also that collectively we haven't found a political solution to the long and lasting unresolved conflict. But we will also reflect on our collective successes, because we have also contributed to the human development and some prosperity in the region. But I also believe that the 75th should be the occasion to start to reflect about what is and should be our collective responsibility and the commitment towards the Palestinian refugees in the future. Our model today the way we are doing business, the unreliability of, our donor base, the fact that we provide public services may but be funded like an NGOs is not sustainable anymore. And hence we need, and I will try to trigger a proper discussion about how do we make sure that we continue collectively to be predictable for the Palestinian refugees, but beyond them, also for the region. So I think I will stop here, and I'm
Sure.
happy to take questions.
Sure. Edie, would you like to start?
Okay, so we're gonna stop. I don't know why,
Mr. Nazarini, thank you very much on behalf of
okay, so there's the warning bell, just, this week. At the UN, I don't know why the screen didn't share. But, it's technology for you, and, kind of the date that he made this, speech. Let's see if I can see the date. So I think it was very recent. And this is something that we will need to, this was June 3rd. So he must have, just made this speech, very, he made it on Friday, so this was yesterday. Okay, so we're right, current with what the latest, problems are. And we, need to do something. What it is exactly, I'm not sure what we can do, but we need to, do something. And I think, Nina, we need to talk to, our tomorrow night, at our, Brooklyn for Peace meeting about this issue, because this is something that is very serious and it affects people's lives. So let's see if we can put this together. And the other article is interesting in the that was written about in so when the push it back again. Was that the Israeli lobby is trying to do a Jeremy Corbyn on Roger Waters. If you saw last week, Roger Waters had a huge concert. He had a couple of really big concerts in New York. They were very pro-Palestinian, and so they're going after him. But this is for us in New York, particularly, this is a very important article. About CUNY, City University of New York, who charged the Israeli lobby. One of the valedictorians who was from Yemen gave a speech at graduation pointing out Israel. And we're going to look at that in a minute. But we also want to note that how British spies have been pulling the Palestinian Authority strings, and Tom Cox and he sent us that article, and it's very interesting to read about. The settlers burning Palestinian village delivered Israel's awesomeness agenda, and women with breast cancer denied treatment for Israel. I mean, when I was in this meeting in Ramallah, my friend Israeli student was a nurse. She told me about the problem that they had, even just getting snake bite venom, anti snake bite venom, because the Israelis banned the Palestinians from getting the snake bite antidote, and Palestine actually has a lot of snakes, and there were a lot of instances of children who were bitten by snakes playing in the fields, and the hospitals couldn't get the anti medicine. So this is a very disgrace in terms of human violation of human rights. So we're going to look at this article about the CUNY law graduate Fatima Mohammed, who said that Palestine can no longer be the exception to our pursuit of justice during the commencement speech. And this created a big brouhaha this week in New York. And let's read. I thought that she was kind of good with it, but now let's see, the Israeli lobby has gone after it. So let's read this article. And those of us in New York, several of us in New York, that were very interested in what's going on under our noses. So students and human rights activists in New York are standing in firm defense of a recent law school graduate against a torrent of smears by politicians, the Israeli lobby, and the university itself. So let's see who we're going to be writing letters to this week. I mean, the City University of New York Law School graduate Fatima Mohammed was selected by fellow students to do a commencement speech. So this is great. Here's this Muslim woman from them, considered a very poor backward country, being selected to do a graduation speech. It's a great honor and breaks all the stereotypes people have about Yemen women, that's for sure. During her speech on May 12th, she spoke emotionally about her grandparents watching from Yemen, reflected on her class experience at virtual law school during the COVID pandemic, and criticized the use of the law to enforce and uphold white supremacy, policing, and censorship. Okay, so she's a young woman who's been watching what's been going on and aware of the injustices. She also celebrated CUNY's law work to amplify, quote, the rights of its students to organize and speak out against Israeli settler colonialism. As Israel, she said, continues to indiscriminately rain bullets and bombs on worshipers, murdering the old, the young, attacking even funerals and graveyards, as it encourages lynch mobs to target Palestinian homes and businesses, as it imprisons its children, as it continues to its project of settler colonialism, expelling Palestinians from their homes, carrying out the ongoing Nakba. Our silence is no longer acceptable. The speech was vetted and approved in advance by administrators at CUNY Law School. That's part of an apparently new policy as a condition of her speaking, according to civil rights group Palestine leader. If you don't know about Palestine, you know it's a great group, and they do marvelous work. Mohammed referenced the two resolutions passed by the law school student body and faculty in support of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, or BDS campaign for Palestinian rights. This is the law school that passed and endorsed BDS at a student and faculty level, recognizing that absent of critical imperialism and settler colonialization limits our world. And the school's mission statement is void of validity, she said. To applause, Mohammed noted that CUNY law students and faculty fought back when investor-focused administrators attempted to cross the BDS picket line, saying loud and clear that Palestine can no longer be the exception to our pursuit of justice. And this is what ABP meant, all but Palestine, where people are liberal except for Palestine. So CUNY Law School ended that. And there's a whole video for speech too that we don't have time to watch, but it's on the electronic website. It's on YouTube also. Israeli lobby groups immediately attacked Mohammed and CUNY Law, as did Democratic Congressman Richie Torres. Hello, Richie Torres. A notorious anti-Palestinian stalwart who has been working to erase Palestinian history out of New York City textbooks at the behest of major Israeli advocacy groups. So this is a serious problem. Torres accepted more than $140,000 from funds raised by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, APAC, the largest donation pool to his 2021-2022 congressional campaign. The lawmaker who traveled to occupy East Jerusalem last year on an APAC propaganda delegation was thanked by the Israeli lobby group for his attack on Mohammed. Texas Senator Ted Cruz also joined Torres in attacking CUNY Law, claiming that Mohammed's speech celebrates anti-Semitism. New York City Mayor Eric Adams followed suit, citing an article by the far-right New York Post attacking and slandering the student. All the best people in New York. CUNY throws the student under the bus then. On Tuesday, CUNY's chancellor and board of trustees decided not to defend those students, but to join the smear campaign against her. The school issued a statement condemning Mohammed and her address, denouncing it as hate speech, and bizarrely asserting that political affiliation is a protected class along with race and religion. University echoed a common tactic used by Israeli law groups to attempt to categorize Zionism, Israel's racist state ideology, as a feature of protected personal identity, in order to claim that any criticism of Zionism is an act of anti-Jewish bigotry. These tactics seem playing out now against city CUNY law and Fatima Muhammad could be even less restrained now that the Biden administration has embraced a strategy document that helps cement the Israeli lobby's key goal of blurring the lines between criticism of Israel and discriminating against Jews. And there's Twitter, if you Google this article, there's Twitter comments explaining all this. Earlier this week, New York State said it opened a probe into CUNY law alleging that the school discriminated against Jewish students when students, faculty passed a BBS resolution. But human rights defenders and some local politicians are pushing back. New York City Council member Shahana Hanif and State Assembly member Zohran Mamdani expressed their support for Fatima Muhammad. And we talked last week about Zohran Mamdani's Not on My Dime, his campaign to take away the not-for-profit status of the groups that are funding the illegal Jewish settlements. And we talked about him last week, 2 weeks ago. Last week, I'm sorry, I didn't do it. I was in the ER. And I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. So I'm still here. Mamdani said, classifying rightful criticisms of Israeli settler colonialism, Zionism, and NIPG as hate speech is an act of political cowardice, all to pacify the rich right-wing impulse. Palestinian leaders said that CUNY's condemnation of Muhammad's address as hate speech is a false accusation that flies in the face of the university's First Amendment obligations and Muhammad's principal words. The group called on the university to apologize to them, correct the record, and take serious measures to protect its students from such attacks that put them, their families, and their careers at risk. So this is something that in New York we need to address. We need to write to Torah's rights to New York City Council. I'm going to write to my council or bachelor right away when we go. The Abdullah Justice Project, the Palestinian Advocacy Education, denounced the attacks on Muhammad by Israeli lobby groups such as the Anti-Defamation League and the Jewish Community Relations Council. On May 31st, the CUNY Jewish Law Student Association released a statement in solidarity with Fatima Muhammad. Wow. Admonishing the attacks against her and the assumption by the Israeli lobby and lawmakers that Jewish students have been harmed. Well, that's big. Wow. For years, Zionist organizations have been enacting targeted harassment campaigns against Palestinians and Muslim law students at the CUNY Law School of Law, the student stated. These are Jewish students. As a public interest focused law school, we have a duty to stand with Palestinians against Zionist oppression, as Fatima has done. When Muhammad condemned the effects of Israeli settler colonization, the association adds, quote, it is disingenuous to characterize these factual descriptions as anti-Semitic when they describe the conditions of Palestinian life. The students explained that they were grateful for their classmates' speech and called on the university to denounce the racist smear campaigns against her. We call on CUNY Law to listen to, support, and defend its student body. Our condemnation of Zionism is based on outrage at the way it has formed and continues to harm Palestinians, not as external Zionist organizations would have people believe on anti-Semitism. Wow, great. Well, that's very important information for all of us. I think. We need to do stuff. Some more Jordan wedding dancing to celebrate today. Let's see if we can find something cheerful So here's Jordan celebrating the Crown Prince Hussein. And remember that his mother is Palestinian, and many of the people in Jordan dancing in the streets are Palestinians, but they weren't always dancing together. So we'll end. Thank you very much for joining both from Gaza. Prayers for you in Gaza. You're in our hearts. And many of us in America are thinking about you and worrying about you in Gaza all the time. Kamal, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Nina and Norby. Always wonderful to see you. Nina, we got to cook something up about this UNRWA stuff. So let's maybe, and also this thing with CUNY. I know Tom sent out some information about it. Maybe BFB can make a joint statement of support for Fatima, and can also send some kind of letter. I don't know, who do we send it to? Gates, Elton Musk, I don't really know the names of all the rich people. Maybe we should just do a Google the Fortune 500 and just send them each an email. What the hell? Why not? It never hurts to ask. All right, so let's watch another cheerful minute of the royal wedding. She's certainly very beautiful. She's the tallest. She's taller than the king, than her husband, than her mother and her father. Her father, the King Abdullah, is the shortest of the lot. He's very short. So they're having everybody. By the way, Obama went. If I can find some dancers. These are just all the rich people coming. They're all being, being announced. Obama went, and he was with a very tall woman, and I'm not sure who she was. Dancing. That wasn't just all the people coming, but she's quite beautiful. So these are all the royals from around the world that are coming. So all the royals supporting the royals. I'm not so sure. I'm very excited about that. Well, let's go back to our initial one. Okay, so this is the wedding, the actual wedding itself. And these are the women doing that show. It's very good. I wish I learned. I never learned how to do it. I still hope you guys can do it. And the dancing is always the best part of all these things. Let's see. A handsome young couple, and this is the street. Actually, this is not far from my house. And here's the king. No seatbelt. And all these bagpipes that were, people think the bagpipes, they think the bagpipes came from the British, but actually bagpipes were invented in the Middle East. And there are always bagpipes at royal weddings, at all weddings, no matter. And so we have a lot of dancing there. What's really cool is the men are really great dancers, and they're never shy about dancing. So let's be happy that Jordan has a possible inside way to help the Palestinians. So thank you everybody for joining. And Nina, tomorrow we'll talk at our meeting and see what we can cook up to address this issue of UNRWA and also Fatima. And thank you, Norvi. So great to see you, and love to everybody in Gaza. Kamal, actually, I met when I went to the celebration in Cairo of the Arab Spring in 2011, I met a dance company from Gaza, and I gave them a print of one of my paintings. So if they said they were going to put it on their dance schools or dance groups' walls. I don't know if it's been bombed since then, but I do have a painting of mine in Gaza. So, and I'm hoping to visit next time I go back to Jordan. So, peace to everybody. Thank you, ladies, for joining, and just keep praying for Palestine. And I have a feeling that things are going to be changing. Masalama. Bye.